So, moving right along, we're going to take the sentences you've made so far and use the literature to support your important facts and statements. You should, at this point, have several sentences that address key issues in the solicitation. And connected to those sentences that address key issues, you should have several more sentences that describe key facts and definitions needed to follow the logic in those key issue addressing sentences. So it might look something like this. In order to blank 1, this project proposes to blank 2. Blank 2 is known to be important to something related to blank 1 and promises to advance our knowledge of blank 3. Blank 1 should be a key issue. Blank 2 is something you're planning to do, and blank 3 is some scientific or technical challenge. That's a really simplistic version of how it should flow, but hopefully it gives you an idea. Now, here's a key concern. You can't just say something is important or known or promising. These kinds of statements are best backed up by proving that other scholars agree with you. And how do you prove that other scholars agree with you? By citing literature that backs you up, of course. You probably already know this. But when I say literature, I'm talking about the scholarly publications in your field. We'll concentrate on the scholarly journal literature, but you know your field best. In some fields, scholarly books or conferences play a more important role than scholarly journals. But in most science and technical fields, there's a big body of scholarly communication, that is to say, researchers putting their research out there for other researchers to build on, in the scholarly journal articles. You already learned some about searching on computers when we talked about searching the grant databases. Recall that computers do not think. They're very stupid in human thinking terms because they take exactly what you say and match it with words in the material you're searching through. So you have to do the thinking. I've tried to set it up to be easy for you to pick out some important thoughts to search for in the computer, though. In modern grants, there usually is not a specific literature review section. Unlike writing papers and articles, in grant writing, we usually try to put scholarly citations throughout our writing. The reviewers want to see citations wherever they work with your proposal and your argument about the importance of your proposal. So you will search for some articles that support the general matter of your proposed work, but even more importantly, you will be searching for articles that support your statements of fact that were introduced at the end of last module. Each time we as grant writers propose something related to research, we have to back it up to prove that it is good research. The research cycle is set up to build on earlier discoveries and innovations. So in grants, they want us to prove that there is good research backing up our research. That can be called appropriate approach or scientific soundness or whatever, but the purpose is to prove that we have a strong basis to go in the direction we are going with our research. So the idea is that we use citations of related research to prove our points. I'll make up an example in education, since everyone knows the basic concepts of science, technology, engineering, math, or STEM education, even if you don't know the techniques. So let's imagine that I'm responding to a solicitation with a goal to improve STEM support pathways for women to complete their college degrees in STEM. My mock approach, is to use mentoring to engage and guide female students in order to prevent them from leaving the field of study and give them needed scholastic and social support through the program. Well, let's break that down into pieces of logic. In order for my argument to work, as a way to address their goal, I need to prove, 1, there is a significant problem with female students leaving STEM fields of study. 2, female students need scholastic and social support in order to prevent them from leaving the STEM fields of study. 3, guidance and engagement are important ways to provide the needed scholastic and social support to female students in STEM majors. And 4, mentoring is an effective way to provide guidance and engagement. Did you follow me through that? I thought about the solution I'm proposing to fill the sponsor's needs. Then I thought about why. Why and how my solution fills their needs. Then I took that why and how logic and I broke it down into logic steps that make the connection really clear. Each of those logic steps is a statement that I want to make in my proposal so that reviewers can understand and believe why my project fulfills their needs. Each of those logic steps is a statement of fact that I want to convince them of. Why? Because if I can convince them of all those facts, those statements of fact, then they will believe my approach can and should fulfill their needs. As long as my approach is innovative and brings something new to the field as well, don't forget that innovative part, and is also something that I am capable of doing, then I should have a winning grant. So now I have a main topic, but I also have a set of these logical steps, these statements of fact I want to prove, and that gives me a lot to work with when I start searching computers. Remember before where you took key terms and phrases out of your project idea in order to search the computer? And you also made alternative words like bacterial for bacteria? That same approach stands for this search process as well. Okay, now, since you're a student at a UNC system university, you have access to some great search tools for finding scholarly articles. Every UNC university has a library with a collection of journal search databases. I would strongly suggest contacting your library because they can tell you targeted databases that you can use to search your search topic. Libraries usually take one-on-one consultation appointments or group instruction appointments too. So I bet you and some of your fellow students could get together to arrange a workshop or class. But even if not, give them a call and make sure you know how to log in to the subscription databases paid for by your library. I'm going to use a database that I know you all have access to. It's paid for by the state of North Carolina for all North Carolina citizens to have access to good research. That is through a service called NC Live at nclive.org, and you'll need an NC Live password or other login through your library to get to it. But if you're in NC, then your library can give you access to NC Live for sure. Now, NC Live has several parts to it. The part I'm going to show you is called ProQuest Central. If you're on your university campus, you can get here like I am at nclive.org, or you can probably go to your library website to a letter P to find ProQuest Central. I'm going to ProQuest Central on the left here. But if you're off campus, you probably need that login information I mentioned through your library. Now I'm in ProQuest Central through NC Live and my library's sponsoring subscription. I need to search for my main topic area, female and college and students and STEM and support. Notice how I'm breaking up that phrase of support pathways for female STEM college students into pieces and putting the word and in between them. That and tells the computer to use all of my words, but not to handle them in any particular order or priority. And remember the stupid part, computers may not always translate female to women or male to men, so I might need to try another search to change my words a bit to account for that. Underneath where I put my words in, I have some useful checkboxes. You should always check full text when you're searching in a library database if you know you are going to need to get the journal articles in full right then. Full text checkbox means that it will only show you the article titles where there's a whole article available with it. Then, in my case, I also want scholarly journal articles, so I'll check that too. Then I'll search. The results that come up are the titles of articles that I can read and use for my grant. Over on the right, I have ways I can narrow down my results. This is a lot like those limiters or filters we worked on the left in grants.gov, remember? The idea is the same. If I click something over here on the right, it will shrink my results down to only show that kind of result. For me, I want to shrink down to scholarly journal articles. That's because I know articles are the main way that education researchers communicate their scholarship. If you usually read conference proceedings in your classes, then that might be an important area for you, and maybe you should include that. A really critical thing with grants is that you only use recent research. I'd say last 3 years is a good idea. That's because they really want you to be innovative. So they want your proofs of your logic to show that they are up to date with current research. So those statements of fact that outline how your logic works, those should be backed up with as recent and new of research as you can possibly find. Now, you might say, what about core research or critical pieces in my field? My professor talks about core research a lot. And I'll say to that, if you haven't read it in class or been told it was a core piece of research, don't include it. We're searching here to add recent proof to what you know. So feel free to use those items your professors have said were important in your field, but wherever possible, add recent stuff to show that they're still considered critical approaches in the field too. So my limiting filters have shrunk my results down, and I see one that looks good here. I'm going to click on a promising title. Because I checked the full text checkbox earlier, I should have text and possibly a PDF version of this article. I can come up here and email this article to myself. Now, it's in my email inbox and I can collect it there and read it later. Do be sure to read your articles. There's nothing as bad as citing an article that you think says one thing and an expert reviewer in your field that has read it knows that it's not saying that at all. Remember that the merit review panel includes experts in and out of your field. So you have to satisfy both. So let's think back to those statements of fact. In addition to my main overarching topic, I need support for those. In some ways, my support for those is even more important because they are the logic links that tie my proposal to the goals of the solicitation, and it's all about the goals, right? So I need to go back and do the same thing where I take my logic links and take the key terms and phrases from those too. So let me think about my first statement that there is a significant problem with female students leaving STEM majors. After all, if it's not a problem, then my solution won't help, right? So make sure you are proving that your research is linked with an identified proven problem. So I search for women in college and leaving in STEM. And I need that scholarly journals checkbox. I must have missed that earlier. And let's see about my limiters. Well, I need to make sure this year is updated too. And then what do my results look like? I want something that will prove I'm right, that female college students drop out of STEM majors. Here we go. I'll click on one, but it would really be best if I had 2 or 3 supporting citations of articles that back me up for every important statement of fact. Remember, these are the links in my chain of proof that my project is the right one to solve the problem, and strong proof makes for strong links, and strong links make for strong grant applications. Let me do another one for my list of facts that I want to prove. That mentoring is an effective way to provide guidance and engagement to college students. Now, notice here that I don't necessarily have to talk about women or STEM majors or anything. That's a hard one for people to wrap their minds around sometimes. But think about this. If mentoring is effective generally for supporting students, then it should be effective for all types of students. So it's effective for women and non-women, effective for STEM and non-STEM students. It's just effective. It's like saying a humidity sensor that's designed for detecting humidity at ground level can detect it as well if you put it up on a roof or even up in the atmosphere. As long as there's no reason it should not be true, then it's true. So you don't have to have every item targeted just on your population. That's easy to say, but tends to be hard to accept when you're looking through articles. Just try to keep it in mind. That's part of why we break the logic down into steps so that we don't have to include every single fact in one search and risk finding nothing at all. Deconstructing the logic of your research is a really, really important skill in moving research forward because it gets to underlying principles. Okay, so I've got some results and I'll email them off too. Hopefully you have the idea now and you're ready to break down your research into key statements of fact and use those to collect your literature to cite in your grant. Strong literature makes for strong grants. That's actually how I, as a librarian, ended up working in grant support because the strength of the literature can make or break a grant. So spend some time really searching for good citations and make sure that chain of logic is well supported, easy to follow, and strong. Thanks for listening. This has been Nina for Module 5 of the UNC PSM course on the fundamentals of grantsmanship.